you seen from the last 2 games?
Obviously about the same thing. Just the load goes to different guys in terms of like what they run. Obviously they've ISO'd the mask a lot more. And, Harmon has really played well in the last 2 games. He got more of an opportunity. He's made a bunch of threes. He's averaging, I think, 19 points in the last 2 games. So I think those are the 2 things that jump out the most. Obviously they would go small anyways at times. They'll have, Dane Danger in the game, and he's great in the low post. When they go away from that, obviously, Ty Rodgers is very dynamic. All the things that he can do, defend, rebound, drive the ball, attack the glass, make plays for himself and for other people. Coleman Hawkins is a very tough matchup with his skill set and his ability to drive and post, block shots, rebound, make threes. Guerrier, the first 8 games, was 6 games, whatever it was kind of finding his way, right? And, ever since then, he's been great, averaging around 18, 19 points. So, they can hurt you in a lot of ways. I didn't mention a couple guys. They have a very good defensive team. They have a good offensive team. They're well coached. They can hurt you in transition. They can hurt you in the half court. And they can hurt you on the glass. So it's like one of those things where you have to have multiple efforts with them and keep making the next play, or they're the ones that are going to make it.
You guys have done a pretty decent job, it seems like, on bigger, interchangeable types of guards. You don't have maybe great sizing. Why?
Well, I could bring up some guards that have done really well against us too. So I think it's just it's a mix of people's style and what they're trying to do, or if people are just trying to ISO you and play. If you can load up some of your help, some of the actions that the teams have ran against us, I think it helps anybody to do that. But when they get you out on an island by yourself, you got to play some one-on-one defense. You can come with some help, but if you overhelp, I think Illinois has proven that they'll pick you apart. They're all willing passers. He has said over and over how connected they are, and you can see it the way they play and the way they share the basketball. So you got to get them in their blind spots. You got to get them when they're vulnerable. If not, you got to be able to play good team defense. But at times you got to be able to guard your man and play one-on-one defense.
What makes Marcus the best?
He's got good size. He can go either way. He can drive the basketball. He's got a good pull-up. He's got a good feel. He can pass the ball. He hasn't gotten going shooting threes, but in the past, he's made a lot of threes in his career, and he shot a good percentage. So just a good overall player, and does a little bit of everything. So you got to have a guy that can kind of match to him, or multiple guys that can match to him, or he uses his quickness, or he uses his size against you.
Does Lance have his playbook?
What's that?
Does Lance have his playbook?
So you'd have to ask Lance. I don't know.
What the first couple games after losing a star, how does that make your job difficult to kind of scout a team? And what about those first couple games with teams kind of fill in that hole? Is that when they're most dangerous?
I don't understand your question. First couple.
The first several games after losing a star player like Illinois did.
Oh, okay.
What makes that so difficult in a scouting perspective, and then teams responding?
I don't think it makes it difficult. I think it makes it difficult if you start to do different things. They just went to more of a package of playing through ISOs, and they were doing that anyways. So if you go watch their Florida Atlantic game, in Damask, had a great game. Like they went to him. They got the hot hand, and they went to him, and they played that way. And that's the way they've played a little bit more. But they're a team that has great balance. So if you want to go and stop one guy, you're probably gonna stop that guy. And then everybody else is gonna have career nights. And so you got to have a team effort against them because they have a really good team. And then they have balances, and so still their number one attribute is just how hard they play, how they go to the glass, how they sprint and transition, how they swarm the ball defensively. So that's always been really the staple of his teams, is just how grimy they are, how tough they are, and how hard they play.
When you can reward a walk-on with a scholarship, is kind of how great is that for you to give somebody who gave their heart, could have been playing somewhere else, that opportunity to pay for their last semester?
Well, you'd like to do it for everybody, because they come out here and they play, and they end up being in practice the other team, whether that's offense or defense, and sometimes it's not fun. It's fun when you can just stay on offense the whole time. But sometimes in practice when you stay on defense the whole time, it's not as fun. But no, Carson getting a scholarship, he deserved it, and I wish I could give all those guys scholarships, but we only had one. But he's worked really hard to help us. He's a good player. He could have went and and played, low major basketball, Division II basketball, and been a really good player. And he can really pass. He knows what's going on. He's competitive, and he cares about Purdue. So I'm happy for him.
Does he have any characteristics of Dave when he was playing here with you?
Yeah, just how hard they play, and just understanding things, both cerebral. Obviously Carson's left-handed and Dave is right-handed.
Do you see him being a future
Man,
coach?
you guys could have been done right there. That was a good, short but sweet one.
Do you see Carson being a future coach?
Yeah,
He's got a little Brady.
I would think he's going to coach. We'll try to talk him out of it, but have a good life.
How does
Have a bunch of success and people give you shit. It's a hell of an occupation. Yeah.
how does someone like Coleman Hawkins with his size and skill set kind of change the court for them?
Oh, he's a deal breaker, man. Like, when he's hitting a three and you got to get up on him, then his ability to drive. He had an unbelievable play against Northwestern where he just drove the middle of the lane and dunked it. He really puts you in a bind. It's a matchup issue, and you got to be there on the catch with him and get him out of rhythm. And then you got to be able to contain the dribble. But it's a team deal. Like, you got to keep him off the glass. You got to be physical as much as you can without fouling. But more than anything, you just got to have an awareness. So if you stay in help and you got to help too much, that's what gives those guys real advantages on those closeouts, to shoot it, but also to drive it on.
Your team's profiled pretty similarly, both balanced. They're really good inside defense, and they also don't generate a lot of turnovers, and you guys don't either. So,
Right.
do you find a pattern with those games where it's kind of similar teams?
Yeah, you get to where it's one of those where the scouts are easier, but it's still hard to do, right?
Yeah.
Because it gets to where, are they running some stuff that other people ran? Well, sure. We all copy each other. We all steal from each other, but it's still, they're electric with their athleticism and everybody that has ball skills. So I always say that scouts after a while don't get to be that difficult, but the difficulty is stopping them,
Yeah.
or like other night, the first half, we were doing a good job stopping them, but then we couldn't stop them on the glass. So you got to have those multiple efforts and be able to do that. But no, that's why I like being a little bit different, because now when they come to play us, now when you get there, you're man, the two scouts before don't help us anymore. Now we've really got to, do some things differently here. And if you go in that quick turnaround, Illinois does some things differently,
Yeah.
but we also just played somebody that does some of the same things. And so that, even though they're different teams, they do some of the same things. It doesn't mean we'll stop them, but it just kind of gives them the familiarity of what's going on.
It's a random question, but I'm working at it a little bit. 50 years since the NIT 1974 team. Clearly, now it seems it's kind of a consolation prize, but back then you were pretty damn good if you won the NIT.
Right.
How important is it to kind of link the current to the past?
Right.
You bring back a lot of guys that were players under you, but also those guys from years ago. You have the alumni game every few years.
Right. Well, that's been a strength of our program. And obviously, two coaches in 44 years, that allows that connectivity of former players, current staff. And so we have a lot of contact with our former players and our alumni. And so this is something just to recognize those guys. And like you said, winning the NIT is a big deal, but it was a huge deal in the early 70s. And there's teams that were going to the NIT over the NCAA, things of that nature. And so it was just, a great time for Purdue basketball. In the 70s had a lot of success. So it's great to see those guys, be honored and come back, for that game.
Lance Jones had a long career in college before here. How have you seen him evolve into the Purdue system and everything over these few months?
I think just learning to play with our personnel, especially Zach. I think, being a good post feeder, being a guy to understand, just let the game be simple. If he's got somebody on their back and you get the basketball inside, I thought he did a good job the other night of getting the ball inside and playing. You just got to pick in your spots. And then defensively, learning our system and being able to defend on the ball and off the ball, just kind of know our rules. And, there's a lot more similarities to where he came from, defensively. So I don't think that's a tough grasp for him. There's a big difference offensively in how we do things and how we play. So that takes a lot of time in terms of watching film and just learning our sets and learning what we're doing and learning what we're trying to do in each and every set.
Thanks.
Thanks.